Howdy ho, neighborinos! Hello and welcome back to Grimlight Games. Don't mind me, just scratching my nose/face real quick. Today we're going to be getting right back into our game dev journey. I think everything's all set on our end for the stream, so we're golden. We're good. We're ready to rock and roll. Today, we're going to be adding a dash mechanic to our player character. And we're probably going to be expanding on that a little bit. It really depends on what's in store, but we're going to want to make sure that there's iframes associated with that. So if the tutorial that we're going to be following doesn't take us through that, that's going to be our challenge to ourselves. For today, maybe. We'll see. It depends on how far we get. Let me just clear a little bit of space here. All right, awesome. Let's get rocking and rolling, jumping right into it.
Hello, friends, and welcome back. In this lecture, I'd like to set up one of our last mechanics in the basic combat section and add some kind of dash functionality for our player. I'd like to be able to hit some kind of hotkey on the keyboard or mouse, dash for just a split second, and...
All right, so this is also cool. I can already tell we're going to be utilizing something called a trail renderer. This is something I've never utilized in Unity before, but this should be very good. It's going to help for other things, other projects.
come back to our regular movement speed. Let's go ahead and get that started. I think the first thing we want to do is set up that hotkey. I'm going to go ahead and put mine in the action map of combat.
Hi. Now, let's see. Do I remember? Oh, I've still got... I got my stream window open, so I'm not even actually paying attention to what's going on there. Is this it? Yes, the player's controller, or player controls. Great, okay. He's going to add it to his combat action map. Yeah, that looks good.
Definitely create your own new action map, but I think that's a little bit redundant and overkill, so I'm just going to go ahead and in my combat action map create a new action called dash, and I'm simply just going to set that binding as spacebar. You could set it as whatever you'd like.
No bindings. Ooh! Excuse me. That kind of snuck up on me a little bit there. Space. Yeah, I mean, space is always a good key for dash. Eventually, we are going to work on mapping this to a controller. But for now, we're not doing that.
Spacebar seems to make sense for me, and I'll go ahead and save that asset. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and open up our player controller script. Now, you could probably go a bit more modular and create your own dash class and
upper lip is so itchy today. Weather around here has been just wildly changing.
communicate with our player controller. For the sake of this course, I'm just going to go ahead and lump it right into the player controller, and I think that should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom and create our private void dash function. We'll go ahead and leave that blank for just a split second, scroll back up and create a start method, and as void dash
There we go. Now we've got a function.
We'll go ahead and leave that blank for just a split second, scroll back up and create a start method. And as we've done before, we'll
put this below our awake. Yep.
with our player controls, I essentially want to subscribe to that dash function, so that way when we hit the spacebar key, we fire that dash function. Player controls.combat.dash.performed, and we'll go ahead and subscribe something without passing anything through, use a lambda expression, and simply call dash. Now with that properly rigged up, we and subscribe something without passing anything
make sure
through, use a lambda
Okay, so it is the equal,
and the expression,
greater
and
than,
simply call.
and then we call the function. Okay, there we go. Good, everything's working there.
Dash.
Fantastic.
Now with that properly rigged up, we simply want to start dashing. So I think what makes sense is to have something like a dash speed. Now you could probably set that as a serialized field up top. I'm just going to go ahead and keep it simple and set it here itself. Call that dash speed.
No, I do want a serialized field for that so I can adjust the speed. All right, so we're going to do something just a little bit different than what he's setting up. I like being able to adjust those parameters inside of the editor. I don't want to be pigeonholed and then have to go back and do it later. We're just going to get that working
And
right
I'm going
now.
to go ahead and make my dash 4 times faster than my initial move speed. So what do we want to do now is we simply want to set move speed to be our move speed times our dash speed. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. All right.
Times equals dash speed. All right, so very simple. That should multiply our move speed by our dash speed. Now, of course, we're going to be testing if this in fact works. And if it works, it should actually make it so our move speed does not slow down after that. So we can even check this out a little bit in a slightly cooler way, right? So we can see what the move speed is, and then in theory, that should adjust. All right, yep. And then if we hit our spacebar, move speed becomes 16 and it doesn't stop being 16. But see, you can see right there, yep. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And watch what happens if we hit it again. God. All right, so it's at least working the way that it's intended.
All right, we are cruising. Now you can imagine if I hit dash again. Ooh, baby, that is going to get out of control.
Of course he did. Why wouldn't you? It's hilarious.
Clean that up. I think what we want to do is some kind of dash routine so that our dash only lasts for a split second. I'm going to go ahead and call mine
core routine.
Dash routine. And inside here, I want some kind of dash time. Again, you could set that as a serialized field. I'm not going to bother unless you want to edit it yourself in the inspector. I'm going to go ahead and set mine as just a split second of 0.2.
Yes, I do want to be able to edit it. So I mean, this is kind of cool. We're breaking away a little bit more in this episode than we have in previous ones. Just because there are things that I want to do differently. Which is great, right? We like that. Get some proof of concept that maybe we sort of, kind of know what we're doing. I mean, yeah, the sort of kind of is definitely...
Seconds. And as you can imagine, we simply want to yield return.
Yield return.
New wait for seconds. And plug in our dash time. At the end of that, we want to set our move speed back to the original. Simple enough, we can go ahead and set our move speed to be our move speed divided by our dash speed. And look at me, it looks like we do need to promote this dash.
We need to promote it. Oh, okay. So he is going to end up making a serialized field like he should have done. So ours should work where his did not. Yeah. So we don't get the error.
Variable to the top of our class. I'm going to go ahead and just cut that out. Scroll to the top of my class. Let's go ahead and just make it a serialized field. Private float dash speed equals to 4. Oops, silly me. Let's go ahead and plug in IE enumerator and make that an actual coroutine.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And inside of our dash function, we can simply start that coroutine. End dash routine.
And our dash will start our coroutine. Start coroutine. and dash routine. Boom! Shakalaka. Okay. So in theory,
we go ahead and start moving quickly, and after 0.2 seconds, we go ahead and slow back down. Let's go ahead and give that a try.
It should work.
All right, and back.
I mean, in theory, there's no reason that this should not work now. Right? Okay. So we've got our dash time, right? We can edit that now. Dash speed, we could always edit because we set that up ahead of time. So now for 0.2 seconds, this 4 should become a 16. Pew! Pew! That's perfect. Like exactly what we need. Now, of course, though, we can... If we mash it really quickly, we can get to 64. Can we get beyond 64? Ah! No, we can't. That was close, though. Okay. So similar to our sword, right? We're going to have to set it up the same way, where we can only dash so often. Definitely going to want probably slightly more cooldown in that, so it can't be abused, unless... Yeah, we'll see how he sets it up and then figure out how we want to do it.
Spacebar, and yep, we've got a little dash mechanic working as intended so far. I think one thing that'll help is some visual feedback to the user with a trail renderer. Let's go ahead and set that
cool.
up.
All right, so this is where we're going to set up the trail renderer. This is something that's completely new to me, so I'm totally excited about this. Empty. All right, good. It's zeroed out.
Create an empty transform and simply call it trail renderer. And on that game object, let's simply add a trail renderer component. And with our player clicked, we can...
Wow, look at that.
We can even go ahead and drag it around the scene and see our gorgeous, beautiful...
Okay. I gotta see that. Oh, we need a remove tool. Oh, cool. So it only is so long. Ah. Oh, that's really cool. Wow. Reset back to 0.
Beautiful, bright purple trail renderer. All right, let's go ahead and get that edited. I think the first thing I want to do is get rid of this ugly purple, so I'm going to go ahead and open up our trail renderer component, click materials.
All right, materials.
And simply give it a basic white material. I think the one that we'd like to add to get a nice default white is this one created by Unity called default line. Gonna go
default line material. Default line material.
Go ahead and add that. And 5 seconds seems way too long. I'm going to go ahead and make it 0.15.
0.15. Okay, so it actually won't last quite as long as the actual dash itself. That makes sense.
And I think I'd like my color to be a little purpley light blue to yellow sort of thing. So I'm going to make this a gradient. I'm going to go ahead and click the most left bottom button. And I'm just going to make that a nice, really subtle bluish.
Okay, so for color, blend classic, he's going to do a gradient. Should probably look pretty good, maybe a little bit darker.
Tint. And in the bottom right, I'm going to make mine a nice little blue to really mild yellow gradient.
Wait, how? Oh, that's cool. Oh, I remember. This is a few episodes ago. Oh man, maybe it was the last episode, which we unfortunately had to end up trashing. I totally screwed up the audio for it. This is something that I didn't realize about the gradient editor when we were trying to play around with it before. You control the colors in the gradient in the bottom, and you control the alpha up top. My God, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He's doing like a yellowish, huh? I mean, yeah, kind of looks cool. We'll probably play around with it a little bit more ourselves based on other things, but for now, let's just follow along because this is brandy new.
But I don't want it to have 100% alpha transparency at the end. I'd like that to fade a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead.
Okay. So then we can adjust our alpha. Look at that. Look at that. Really something like that.
Mine down to about 190, and I think that should be about right. And let's go ahead and see how that looks so far. Yeah, that seems a
nice. Wee, 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 wee. And we'll just reattach that because I didn't mean to move. I meant to move the whole player.
Two things I'd like to change, however, is in our trail renderer, I do always want it to be behind the player. So I'm going to go ahead and somewhere in here, we should see an order in layer.
Order in layer. Okay,
Yep,
found it.
I'm going to go ahead and make that
-1. Well, yeah, since it's attached to the player, that'll just change that.
-1.
Oops.
And it does look to be way too wide. I'm going to make mine significantly thinner here. I'm going to
around there. Okay.
go ahead and right click and add a key.
Add a key. How was he able to do that, but I can't? Delete key, edit key. How do I add a key? Why was yours different than mine?
And it does
Let's watch that again real quick, see if we missed something.
I'm going to make mine significantly thinner here. I'm going to go ahead and right click.
Oh, I have to click on the line? Yeah, okay. That's what it was. Oh, his is around 0.5 though. Let's delete that. Okay, there we go.
Drop that down pretty drastically, and then somewhere towards the end, I just want that to basically fade to.
Okay. That to like 2, go from 4 to 2, and then closer to the 1 second mark, we'll bring it down to like nothing. Okay.
0. I'm going to go ahead and grab this little handle here, edit it just a bit up so it just.
Oh, I see. So you can make it more of like a curve. Okay. So I could probably even adjust this one a little bit and make it a little sharper.
Slowly fades at the beginning and then at the end is a nice steep sharp point. I think that should be about right. Let's go ahead and give it a try. All right, we've got our little trail renderer, and I think that looks about right.
Okay, so I bet what we can do is we're going to turn it off and on. Look at that. That's kind of cool. We're going to turn it on and off. He's like a comet. Ah! So that way it's not on when we're just walking. Okay. We like E. We like E a lot.
Except we don't want it to always be emitting. Well, that's simple enough. Let's go ahead and head back into our player controller.
Yep.
And at the top, I'm going to add another serialized field called private trail renderer. I'm just
Trail renderer. renderer.
Just going to go ahead and call mine my trail renderer with a lowercase m. We'll make sure we assign that in the inspector when we get back. Inside of dash, once we start, we simply want to start emitting that trail renderer. And the way we do that is in the trail renderer component, we can simply go into the emitting property and simply set that to true or false as needed. So at the beginning of dash, we want to set that to true.
Okay.
And when it's done, we simply want to set our trail renderer dot emitting back.
That's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Cool. It's got like a built-in bool.
Back defaults. Perfect. Let's give that a try. Going to go ahead and click my player, find our player controller, and assign the trail renderer component to our.
Ah, okay. I see. Whew. Oh, we are a tired lad today. I'll tell you, 5 a.m. comes really early. But I've already worked 4.5 hours, something like that. 4 hours? 4 hours. 4 hours. What am I trying to do? Oh, it's in our script, right? Trail renderer. Okay. Boom.
Player controller serialized field. I'm going to go ahead and click my trail renderer game object, and inside.
All right, come on. Oh, I might have to grab a little more caffeine to make it through. We're almost done with this little segment. We're gonna finish this, then I am gonna step away to go grab some caffeine because I'm dragging. Like just hit a wall. Having trouble focusing too. Eyes are drying out. Ugh. Okay, so in our trail renderer
component itself, go ahead and
we want to deactivate emitting so it starts off as
uncheck
false.
Emitting by default, since I don't want it to be emitting at the beginning of our scene. Go ahead.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay. Now, as we go through and we do this, it should not. See, no trail. But then it starts and it stops as soon as we dash. Pew! Hiya! Hiya! See if we can dash backwards and hit him at the same time. I didn't hit the dash button. Oh well, it works. We still don't have the camera following our player, though. That's going to be something we're going to want to do in the nearest future.
Give it a shot. We're walking around, can't see the trail. Hit space. That doesn't look too shabby.
Oh my
goodness. Mine's a little bit too low. I'm going to go ahead and unclick play, double-click the player, and shift my trail renderer up just a tad so it's more centralized in the middle of his body. Now, I didn't love the way that mine was a little bit wobbly at the beginning. I think I'm just going to go ahead and delete the key myself and give that a try. All right, not too bad. I think I'm going to go ahead and just shift mine just a tad down. Go ahead and click this handle and just make it super duper vanilla. That should give us a nice clean triangle sort of looking trail renderer. But you'll notice one bug. If you spam spacebar, that seems like quite a broken mechanic as there's no sort of cooldown to our dash. Let's go ahead and adjust that. I'm just going to go ahead and set mine directly in the routine itself. I'm going to call mine dash CD.
Okay. Cooldown time. Yeah, we knew that was coming. Obviously, we don't want... Nope. Nope. Why do you not want to set these up as serialized fields, right, my dude? I truly believe that they should be.
I'm going to set that to just be a tad longer than the dash itself. I think something like 0.25 makes sense.
Yeah, we'll see what that feels like.
And inside of a coroutine itself, you can have 2 different yields. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that.
Oh, I was like, what's going on there? I accidentally deleted it, that's what.
Shift this down a tad, and below where it's...
What was it? It was shift? No, not shift. Control? No. Maybe it's alt. Yes.
I'm simply going to just go ahead and plug in our -cd as our wait for seconds parameter. And now all we need to do is at the top of our class have some kind of bool that we can modify. I'll go ahead and call it private bool is dashing. And initialize that to false by default. And simple enough. At the start of dash, we simply want to set is dashing to true.
Yes. Is dashing true? Oh my god. And then we're going to reset it to false right at the start of our core routine?
And at the very end of our routine.
Oh, at the very end. Okay. Yeah, no, actually, that does make sense. If it was at the beginning, it would every time we turn it on, it would just turn right back off.
Simply set is dashing to false. And the last thing we need to do is inside of dash, simply check if we're already dashing.
Yep. We need the if. Always need the if.
Aren't with an exclamation point, we simply want to call all of this code. I'm going to go ahead and shift that up and press.
There we go. And then I think, in theory... Oh, heck yeah. So if I hold Alt... Nope, that didn't work. Can I just tab it all? Oh yeah, look at that! Man, I really like VS Code. I'm gonna say, you know, all right, this is also as a very, very novice coder. I think VS Code is superior to oh my gosh, what was I using before? Visual Studio? Visual Studio, yeah. What are you trying to tell me? I don't know. I am so tired. Oh my goodness.
Give that a try in Unity. All right. You probably can't hear me.
Let's see if this all works now. So first, I'm going to open up my player. All right, so we can edit our dash cooldown, all that fun stuff. Now let's make sure that we can't spam our dash. Okay, so dash is working regularly. Can't spam it. Love it. You know, maybe we will make it so it has that really cool short cooldown, but I think we're going to build in an endurance resource into our player HUD, and we'll have to set up something on top of that, like if blah blah blah, or if you're not dashing and has enough resource, and then minus, you know, the resource. So we'll be able to set that up later without any issues. That should actually be pretty straightforward and easy.
Spacebar key, and it looks like we have that nice, clean, crisp cooldown, so that way we can't spam our dash functionality. One quick thing before we go. In this lecture's challenge, flex your game dev muscles and edit your dash function and your trail renderer component in your own fun and unique way. Change the color, change the width, change the shape, maybe the texture mode, and go crazy. And most importantly, share your changes with the community.
Oh, want to mess around with the trail renderer? No. No, I don't really feel like doing that right now. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. I'm going to go caffeinate. And then we're going to keep moving forward. I want to get some more code in. I want to finish up at least this rudimentary combat system, so then we can hopefully start working on ranged weapons, abilities, stuff like that. Because one of the plans that I have for this is there's going to be a dual system. So when you're in the overworld as the player running around, right? Like that's going to be one thing. But there's going to be naval combat as well for this game. So in the aspects where you're on the world map, so to speak, and you're in your little boat, then we want to utilize this same combat system, but obviously instead of the player character, right, we're going to be rendering the boat sprite. So, and that's going to be a little bit different. Oh, all right. Nope. Taking the break, getting our caffeine.
This lecture, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. We're back. Getting ready. Section cleanup. Oh boy. All right, yeah. So we've pretty much finished the very rudimentary part of our combat system. We don't have the iframes for the dash, so that's probably something we're going to have to do on our own. It doesn't look like that's going to be part of this lecture, but that's fine. I have done that before for a previous project, so maybe we'll borrow from that. Maybe we'll just try and write it from scratch. I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. Let's do our section cleanup at least.
Things set up in a pretty good way for our combat section. However, I'd like to use this lecture to clean up a few things in the code, just to make sure we have our combat base as solid of a foundation as possible that we can continue to build on that as we go. Let's go through the code and fix up a few minor errors. I'm going to go ahead and just open up my file explorer, as we'll tend to kind of go from top to bottom and navigate throughout these files. The first thing I want to do is in our self-destroy class. I made a little bit of a typo here. I would like this to be renamed destroy self animation event.
Public void. All right, so basically what we're going to be doing for the next 6 minutes, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer than that because I'm going to have to be pausing. We're just going to go through and we're going to clean up some of the code that we have made throughout this section,
so that we can have this anim event naming convention consistent. I'm going to go ahead and update the function there.
So the reasoning, right? So why are we changing destroy self anim event? So as the project gets larger, it is important to try to keep to, how do I want to word this? Basically, so that way your namesakes, they all have a theme to them for when they are of a similar type. So for animation events, right, giving them the anim event, that's going to help us quickly look through code as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, trying to identify specific areas and just also to help know what's exactly happening from a quick glance without having to obviously comment out everything.
Now you'll notice if we head back into Unity, we might need to reset that animation event. So what I'm going to do is just double check that. I'm going to double click my...
And yes, we are going to have to probably reset a couple things after we do that. So always important to remember where these things are when you make changes.
/ animation prefab, go into my animation event.
Yeah, see, function not supported, so we are going to have to change that. Now, that will be fine.
And yep, it does look like because we renamed this, we do need to reassign that function there. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and exit out of my prefab and head back into the code. In our player controller class and up at the very top, I don't necessarily
All right, what are you changing next? Something in our
need
fields?
this to have a public setter yet. I just need that public getter. So I'm going to go ahead and refactor this just a tad. If we need to reintroduce the setter later on, we can of course do that. So what I'm going to do is keep this public getter to return our facing left private variable, but I'm simply just going to go ahead and delete this public setter method.
Deleting the public setter. Okay.
Going to go ahead and delete that there. Yep, that looks about right. All we need to do now is scroll back down. We'll have a couple minor errors. We can go ahead and just change that into changing the private variable directly since we're inside of this.
Oh, that's it? Shift? No. How did he change both of those? That's cool. I want to learn how to do that.
Into changing the private variable directly since we're inside of this class.
How do you do that? Sorry, we gotta stop and figure this out because that was really cool. Highlighting both of them. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. No.
Do now is scroll back down. We'll have a couple minor errors. We can go ahead and just change that into changing the private variable directly since we're inside of this class. I'm going to go.
Huh. I don't know how to do it. But that's really cool. Okay. Well, we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. That's slow.
And head on over to our damage source class next. And what I can do in this damage source class is clean this up just a tad by removing this line, and instead of checking it up here as an if statement, we can simply do a null reference check with a little bit of a question mark syntax. So what we can do is we can promote this to the top of the function.
Hang it. Alt. There we go. Okay, we've promoted that to the top.
And simply delete this if statement. Now, because we have this enemy health class, we can simply add one little question mark here. Bada bing, bada boom. What this is going to now do is first.
Interesting. So enemy health. Huh.
Check if it does have the enemy health component, and if it does, it will go ahead and continue and fire that take damage function. Pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So we can just clean up this function a tad. Now you'll notice that in our player controller class in the end dash coroutine,
that's really cool.
you're going to have to take this move speed and set it back to move speed divided by dash speed. So we do want to refrain from constantly dividing floats by floats, which can lead to precision errors over time. So what I'm going to do is at the very top of our class, I'm simply just going to set our starting move speed to match our move speed right off of the get-go and then set it back to that. So that way we don't have to be constantly dividing floats by floats. So what I'm going to do is right about here, I'm just going to create a private float called starting move speed. And probably somewhere in start below we're subscribing to dash, I'm just going to go ahead and mark starting move speed.
Okay.
speed as our move speed. That way we can simply take that starting move speed, and instead of doing this float divided by equation, we can simply set move speed back to starting move speed every time.
Okay. I see what he's doing, and I see why he did it. That makes total sense. So basically, we don't want to end up in a situation where after we math something a whole bunch of times, especially if for some reason you're able to spam it, if we end up having some integers in there, we don't want that. So it'll just reset itself to the starting move speed, which is a constant number, instead of trying to redivide back after multiplying. Boom.
Nice. Now I'm going to go from top to bottom over here, left to right, and find any magic numbers that we left lingering around. This seems like a pretty good magic number to clean up. Rule of thumb, it's okay to leave magic numbers if it's a negative, 1, 0, or 1, but for the most part, with few exceptions, it's usually a good idea to remove.
Oh, magic numbers. I understand what he means by that. Okay. So that way you've always got it in your fields up at the top, as opposed to, or like it's set somewhere, as opposed to just using a number within the code. So let's see. Enemy AI, that's where he's in right now. And it's this wait for seconds thing.
Magic numbers whenever necessary.
Wait a minute. Get roaming position, vector 2. Oh, that's right. My roaming position is in the enemy pathfinding. His is in enemy AI. That's right, because we did ours a little bit different. And I liked ours better, so we were going to stick with that. Yeah, we don't have any magic numbers in there though. Enemy AI. What are we going to do with that?
So this is a nice one to clean up. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And up top, I think it makes a lot of sense to make this a serialized field, so that way if we want to change.
Yeah.
Our roaming float time as necessary, we can simply change it in the inspector. So what I'm going to do is just call this roam change direction, or just dir for short, float. I'll initialize that as 2, and I'll simply go down here, make sure that's a float. I'll go ahead and copy that.
You have the word float written in there. You don't really need that. But and there's lots of little shortcuts I need to learn that would make my life so much easier.
That and just replace the 2f float down here. Like we mentioned, we can leave these magic numbers since they're simply -1 and 1 pure values, and we can move on. Next down the list, in enemy health, we probably want to give each enemy health instance or enemy its own knockback.
Yeah, that makes sense for the knockback. So say you have an enemy that's heavier, right? Oh, I think maybe we already did this in ours. Oh no, hang on. It was in enemy health. Oh no, we did not. Okay.
Float. So maybe some enemies knock back our player hero more or less than others. So I'll do the same thing up here. I'll create a serialized field for a private float, and I'm just going to call it knockback for Russ. And I'll go ahead and we know 15F is about right for now, so I'll go ahead and initialize it at 15. Copy that and simply replace this 15.
Perfect.
15 down here, we should be set to go there. Now, a small little typo by me, because this is a public variable, I'm going to
Where is he? He's in the actual knockback script now? Okay.
go ahead and change this to a capitalized Pascal case. And what we can do to rename this instance of this variable all throughout our entire code base, not only this class, is we can go ahead and highlight it, right-click it, and I believe it's rename simple, and we can simply rename it to whatever we'd want. I'm just going to go ahead and re-click here and rename that to an uppercase G and press enter. And you'll notice that
shoot. I already forgot what he did.
not only this class, is we can go ahead and highlight it, right-click it, and I believe it's rename simple, and we can simply rename it to whatever we want.
Was that not there before?
Go ahead and re-click here and rename that to an uppercase G and press enter. And you'll notice that down below,
Hey!
Everything should have got renamed, even in other classes, correctly.
That's awesome.
The only other thing worth mentioning is in our sword class, we do have these magic numbers here of this negative.
All right, he's talking about the magic numbers in our sword class now. So what's going to happen with this?
Value to flip our sword animation back and forth. You could have some kind of variable up top for that negative 180 value. That does seem a tad redundant since we're never going to need to do anything but just flip it directly on the X horizontal axis back and forth. So I'm going to leave that as an exception for now, and we'll go ahead and move forward. I'm going to go ahead and head back into Unity, and we'll just go ahead and make sure everything compiles correctly and plays correctly.
Okay, so now that we made a whole bunch of changes to random scripts, I'm going to make sure we didn't just break our game. All right, we can still swing. Still got cooldown there. Still dash. We've got cooldown on our dash. Enemy is running away. Console is still reporting. Hey. Okay, enemy is destroyed. Great. Awesome. Oh, now here's an interesting thing. Oh, good. I can get right to my debugs from there if I wanted to take them out. Perfect.
Correctly, and we will go ahead and move on. All right, so I can still hold down the sword. We're slashing. I'm actually just going to look over on my scene view since we haven't set up the camera controller yet. And yep, everything seems to be destroyed correctly. We can still dash around correctly, and everything seems to be all hunky-dory. All right, well done in not only this lecture, but this entire section. This is the meatiest section of this course, and I can't wait to see what we come up with moving forward. I'll see you there in the next section.
Perfect. Now we get to set up our environment. Ooh.
Welcome to the next section, our environment. We're going to be setting up Cinemachine in a way so that we get this nice, smooth camera controller effect of following our character around the map, as well as setting up our tile set. We'll have several different tile maps set up, like things like our foreground, so we can run into these cliffs, our nice water, and this really cool and slick canopy parallax effect to give this 3D somewhat effect in this 2D top-down world. We'll be setting up our sprite transparency to both fade in and out behind trees and our canopy, as well as destructible objects like things like our bushes, so that when we slash through our bushes, we get this nice, clean, and cool particle effect to destroy our world. I hope you're excited to spruce things up. Let's dive in.
Nice. This is going to be great. This section's going to help build out some understanding for things we're absolutely going to need.
Welcome back, friends. I think we're long overdue to set up a basic camera controller. As you know well by now, currently the camera is not moving around at all, and we just have this nice static image, and our player can easily walk off the camera. I'm excited to show you just how powerful and easy Cinemachine can be. So, step number 1, let's head on over to our package manager and install Cinemachine.
All right, so we're gonna install Cinemachine. But first, I'm going to put some more slimes in my world. And I think Cinemachine will already be in. Oh, I've already got my package manager set. That was a really cool tip that he gave in the very beginning setting this up. I do actually like having the package machine just right there. But it looks like maybe we don't have the search function. Oh. What?
Machine.
There's the Cinemachine.
You're going to have to click this tab.
Oh, because we're in project. We're supposed to be in the Unity registry. Cinemachine. It is not, so we do have to install it. Okay.
On over to your unit registry to make sure we can search for the package. I'm going to search for Cinemachine and hit the install button. After that's done installing and importing, I'm going to go ahead and over in our hierarchy, I'm just going to go ahead and create
That's right, we have to create a new camera.
An empty game object called cameras. I'm going to drag it to the top of my hierarchy is where I like to put it. And I'm going to simply drag in my main camera, head back on over into our scene.
He's putting his main camera in there. Okay.
View, right-click our camera's empty game object, and I'm going to create a Cinemachine. Lots of different options here, but the one that we want to use for a top-down 2D game typically is a state-driven camera. Oh. That's going to give us this nice nested child object of a virtual camera. I'm going to go ahead and click our virtual camera, and we can see a property here called follow. I want it to follow my player, so I'm going to click the player. Drag it on over and drop it into the follow property. And voila, we can actually see the camera snap to our player. So if you were to actually go ahead and just click the player and move it around, hey, look at that. Easy peasy, we've got it set up. Nice. So if we click play, we can see it's that easy. We actually have a nice looking camera following our player. If you click the main camera and enable gizmos to make sure you can see where the camera is, you can see that this camera is slowly following us around with a little bit of a nice smooth delay, and that's the power of Cinemachine. In our virtual camera, you have a bunch of different options in the body and aim properties that drop down, and you can modify this to your heart's content. The one thing I want to change for now is I'm going to unclick play to make sure it saves, and I'm just going to make my lens ortho size 7.
Why? Do I like that? I don't know. I guess we'll leave it like that for now.
You may want to change that to something slightly different. I would encourage and welcome you to do that. But for now, I'm going to keep mine at 7. And that's really how easy it is. We have our camera following us around, but we don't want our camera overflowing onto these ugly edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give us a little bit more room. I'm going to click this grass object that we're going to very soon delete when we set up our tiles. I'm just going to give us a little bit more room here to something. A more natural level size, expand that just a tad, and in our cameras, what I'm going to do is create an empty camera confiner game object. What I'm going to do with this is in our virtual camera game object, down here below, we can
All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to set up an area that the camera has to stay into. I mean, this is all pretty standard stuff for Cinemachine and getting the camera. Almost every single lecture you could possibly follow will be very similar. Like, I mean, there really hasn't been anything that he's said as of yet. Woo! Pardon me. That's making me pause and being like, wait, what?
Install extensions onto our virtual camera. So the one that I want to use for this is a Cinemachine Confiner 2D. Be very careful you don't accidentally install the non-2D camera confiner extension. I've done that before. It'll give you a little bit of a headache until you figure out why. Make sure you do indeed put the camera confiner 2D extension on. And it's going to tell us that we need a bounding shape 2D. Sadly, you won't be able to use a simple box collider, so it does have to use a polygon 2D collider. Well, that's simple enough over on our camera confiner. Let's go ahead and click Add Component. Search for Polygon Collider 2D. I'm going to go ahead and click Edit Collider, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag these on over into the edges. It really doesn't even
Look at that. Nice, crisp. Crisp line for our camera. That one's going to be a little bit trickier to get crisp just because it's got the two.
too perfect. You could spend a little bit of more time on this than I'm going to, but it's really not even that important. I'm going to go ahead and drag on 4 different corners to the 4 different edges of our grass box. And we have that extra polygon side here. So I'm going to go ahead and anywhere on the line, I'm going to hover over, hold Control, get the red line, and left click to delete.
Oh, that's brilliant. There we go. I didn't know I could do that. Okay, never mind. He did just teach me something new. That was really cool. So we can take something out of it, right? So now we just have the 4 snap corners. Oh, that's so cool.
As soon as we have that set up, we can click our virtual camera.
And now our camera is confined.
Machine confiner and drag in that camera confiner game object. There you go. Now I'm going to click play and we will see a little bit of an error, but let's go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, yep, you might have seen that coming. It looks like our camera is being confined correctly, but you can imagine we don't want that collider to actually affect any of our game objects. You could probably get away with just making that a trigger, but what I'm going to do is you can see in our Edit Project settings, we have this Physics 2D tab. If you select this on the drop down to the left, and if we click on over to this Layer Collision Matrix, we can disable what we want it to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click our camera confiner.
Interesting. Does that make more sense than setting this as a trigger? I guess, because then if we make this a prefab, we wouldn't have to rebuild it every time. But I mean, it would be fine too. Okay, we're just going to do it this way. Oh, Physics 2D. We want Layer Collision Matrix. There we go.
See it selected over here in the inspector. I'm going to go ahead and click the Layer tab, add a layer, and I'm just going to call it Cinemachine Confiner. And over in our Cinemachine Confiner, in our inspector, make sure that's selected, and I'm going to select the Cinemachine Confiner. You can see that this populated over in our layer.
Oh my god. Confiner. There we go. All right, what the... You did something else while I was futzing around with that.
I'm just going to call it Cinemachine Confiner. And over in our
Hey!
confiner in our inspector, make
Hello! How are you? I'm doing great, thanks. Aw, did I miss you? That's a shame. You still there, friendo? Oh, hey Lisa. How are we doing? Thanks so much for stopping by. My name is Dan. I am Grimmy, host of Grimlight Games. It's very nice to meet you. I really appreciate you stopping by. You have the honor of being my first interaction on a Twitch stream. So, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, how are you doing today? What's going on? Oh, hey. How we doing, Jay Dizzy? Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Wow. Wow, this is, oh man, I'm kind of like, I got some goosebumps going on. This is so cool. I've never had people chatting before. And because I'm getting excited, somebody else is getting really excited too. Let's see if I can get him up here on screen. He's very happy that Papa's excited. Yeah. Yeah. You want to say hi? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Yes, this is Odie. He's my little buddy. He hangs out with me. He comes to work with me. He does everything with me. If you've ever heard of the Velcro Aussie personality, he absolutely embodies that 110%. But yeah, guys. So thank you so much for chit-chatting. This is going to be great practice for me too, because I've really just been streaming to myself now for quite a while. So I'm going to try and continue on with what we're doing, but also make sure that I'm paying attention and checking out what you guys are doing.
Selected, and I'm going to select the Cinemachine Confiner. You can see that this population.
What we got going on here? Oh, I gotta rewind my video a little bit. I got so distracted by all that. I'm so happy.
I'm just going to call it Cinemachine.
All right, so let's see. We set up our new layer, Cinemachine Confiner.
Selected, and I'm going to.
Oh, that's all right. That's what I missed. So we're just going to set it in our layer. I mean, we made it, so we may as well set it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. It's taken quite a while to get the physical setup and the digital setup. There's a couple things that I still want to do. It was a little bit earlier. I had stepped away because I needed I needed some caffeine. I was absolutely dying today, and when I tried to put my my pause screen up, if you will, or like my be right back, absolutely nothing showed up because I just recently moved a folder around, which means the folder that it's in doesn't exist anymore. So we're gonna have to go back and get that fixed in the near future.
Confiner. You can see that this populated over in our layer collision matrix.
All right, here we go.
I am just going to untick every single check mark that has to do with the Cinemachine Confiner.
Fantastic.
So that way it never gives us any headache on affecting any kind of physics.
Good. So what we did here and why we did this. So now every time that we set up a confinement for our camera, it's not going to pop up as an actual collider that's going to affect the game. Right? It's basically just not going to exist for the sake of physics, which is great.
Any other game object in our scene. And with all that set up, I'm going to go ahead and blow up our game view, and I think we should be set up correctly. Yep. Hey, look at that. We have got...
All right. Let's test it now. So if we did this right, we shouldn't get ejected to the very edge of the map. Hey, we did not. Would you look at that? Oh, and see, now our camera is confined. I mean, obviously, you can see over on the left side, player is not confined, but we're going to fix that with a different type of collider. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Great.
A nice looking camera controller.
Look
as
at
soon
that.
as we get to the edges that we defined by our polygon collider, our camera stops moving and doesn't go further than that edge. Now you can see that our player can still go off, but we'll address that as soon as we get to our tile sets, which is coming up shortly. And with that comes
this will be great. So the next section that we're going to be tackling is going to be tile sets. And tile sets is something that I have not even remotely touched in any of the projects that I've worked on. So this next section is going to be a real good one for a learning environment. Learning for me, learning for you guys. It should be cool because just everything that I've seen about utilizing tile sets, like it's what I need to be doing for the kind of games that I want to make. So this will be good. This will be great. Let's see. So our challenge is to mess around with our camera until we like it. We're pretty gosh darn close to liking this already. I might play around with the size a little bit more. I mean, I thought I liked this this close up. I mean, obviously 5 is way too. Pardon me, 5 is way too close. 7, you know, I don't know. I think 7 may be actually growing on me a little bit. I hate to say it just because that's how he set up his. So it's like, oh, you're just doing the same thing. I mean, yeah, kind of. Maybe down the road, we'll change it. I definitely know when we set up our naval combat, we'll be using a much further away camera, probably something like an 11, just because it's going to encompass a lot more, right? You're going to be traveling on a much more open map. So encountering an enemy on the high seas, you'll need to see a little bit more. So there's more play to that. But I think 7 is going to be good for our player camera.
Lectures challenge.
We'll leave that like
Modify
that.
your Cinemachine virtual camera to have the properties that look and feel good to you. Every game is different. Some are going to be extremely zoomed in. Some are going to be extremely zoomed out.
Hey, would you look at that?
Some
We got a
games
new
you can use
follower,
mouse
but it
wheel
didn't
to scroll
pop up
in and out, and
on
you
the
can
stream.
modify
Or
your
maybe it
Cinemachine
did.
properties to your
I
heart's
just couldn't
content.
see it. I'll have
Go
to check
ahead,
that in
take
the...
a moment to do that. I'm going to go ahead and leave my Cinemachine.
My brain is not firing on all pistons today. I'll have to check that in the replay of this. Because I'm still trying to find a good way to be able to see what's going on in the stream and, you know, chat, communicate with everybody, but also having my screens available, because when I'm doing coding, I mean, there's... I don't know if you can see in my glasses, right? But we've got our main screen, then we look over, we've got a vertical screen there, then we've got another screen up above, which is, you know, what I'm utilizing for that. But then I've got one over here on the right that I could potentially use, but I'm always iffy about using that one. I don't know why, but for some reason, when I use that monitor and I have multiple programs running that require GPU, sometimes the computer just decides to crash. So I just really don't use that monitor anymore. So for our chat, right, I've got my cell phone right out in front of me. So at least I can see the chat. And that's beneficial. But I won't know when people are following, and it doesn't play the sound. So maybe that's just what I need to do. Maybe I need to run the Stream Manager in the background and just have it audio only, so I can see chat on my phone, but I'll get the audio alerts if someone follows or something like that, so then that way I can communicate with that, right? I think that sounds like a good idea. But that'll be for another time.
Camera properties very close to the default settings as we've already set up with that ortho lens of 7. Well done on this lecture.
That's interesting.
As soon as you have your Cinemachine virtual camera set up in a way that looks good to you, I'll see you in the next lecture.
There we go. Don't mind me changing screens on you, messing with your heads. Tile map.
Welcome
back. Boy.
I think it's time.
Actually, all right, before we dive into this, I just need to check real quick. How are we doing on time? What time is it? It's 11:30. Where's my calendar? Because I do have a meeting. What time is that? No, we're good. We've still got time. We can at least go for another half hour. There we go. Oh. What? Oh my gosh. All right, perfect. Okay, we're back. Awesome. All right, let's dive into tile maps. We got plenty of time. Oh, geez. There's going to be quite a bit going on here. Although these lectures are pretty quick, so who knows? Maybe we can get through the whole tile map before we finish up our episode today.
We start setting up our tile map and give this scene a bit more life. First of all, I'd like to click.
Well, thanks. So, what we're working on, I'll give you a little bit of background, right? So we are following along with a lecture from GameDev.tv. I'm a very, very novice. Thank you. So, all right, we're gonna go off on a tangent real quick. I typically do have a beard grown out quite a bit. I've enjoyed my beard ever since I could grow it. But right now, what I'm growing it out for is Saturday. I've got a Halloween party that I'm hosting, and I'm going to need to do something very specific with my facial hair for my costume. So I'm letting it kind of get a little bit homeless looking right now, so that way we've got a good canvas to work with. It should be a fun time. Although my wife has no idea what to expect with this costume, and I'm not gonna ruin it. I'm not gonna surprise. It's gonna be a surprise. Maybe actually we're gonna be doing a stream Saturday. So you know what? I'll do my stream Saturday in costume, so that way anybody who stops by, anybody who checks it out, you'll get to see what it is before the party comes along. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that. So what we're working on. This project, it's the start, the beginning of what we're going to be building, maybe for a couple of years. It really depends. I've got a pretty lofty scope for what I want to do with this. I was a huge fan of A Link to the Past growing up on SNES, and ever since I kind of got that in my head. My first game that I really worked on, I wanted to encompass a lot of that. So without without exposing too much before we really figure out what we're going to be able to do, I have this grand idea where it's going to follow in the footsteps of that, being a pretty open world, exploratory 2D RPG. Where you've got various puzzles and areas of the world you can travel to, but there's also going to be a component where we're hanging out on the high seas. So it's going to have a little bit of a pirate theme to it. And I've got tons of notes that I've been writing in my Obsidian folder, fleshing this story out that I've got in my head that I want to put into the game. But I don't want to say too much about it just because I don't know how my limited skills are going to help me pan this out and really get everything going. So I don't want to overpromise and then underdeliver. So I'm going to underpromise and overdeliver on what it is we're working on. So for now, GameDev.tv, they've got this really great series of lectures that I picked up on Udemy. And it's all aspects that I want to include in the game. Obviously, we're going to build quite a bit upon them. I mean, this is such a rudimentary combat system that doesn't include using ranged weapons or abilities, having like a skill tree that you can level up into, and those are things that we want to add in. But they've got such a really good rubric setup, and the lecturer, very easy to understand. Their code is super clean. They do a great job of explaining what it is they're doing, and me still being in the learning phase, it's wonderful. So I can't say enough good things about the lectures that GameDev.tv puts out, and would highly recommend them if you are trying to learn coding or game design in general.
Clean up my hierarchy just a tad, so I'm going to go ahead and make just an enemies folder.
All right, I kind of lost my place mentally. We had quite a bit of a tangent there. Appreciate it, though.
First of all, I'd like to clean up my hierarchy just a tad, so I'm going to go ahead and make just an enemies folder.
Easy enough.
And drag my 4 slimes into that enemies folder just to clean that up a tad. I'm also just going to disable the enemies folder for now, just to get our enemies out of the way.
This is something that is pretty rudimentary in a lot of lectures. Keeping your hierarchy clean, because obviously, as your project gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it can get a little overwhelming looking for things and trying to figure out where they are. So if you've kind of got it all compartmentalized, it'll be a lot easier. We do the same thing for our assets folder, right? Just good organization is paramount to good navigation and being able to get around your project much quicker and not wasting time.
You should be able to download your tile map sprite sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and create an empty folder called tile map, and I'm going to throw it in there. So I'm going to...
Okay. So what we're going to do now We're going to create a new empty folder. This is going to be for our tile map. And now I am going to have to be a little bit more attentive to what it is that he is doing, because tile maps are a brand new thing for me. Have never, ever messed with these, even just trying to figure some stuff out on my own. So there's a resources folder that we're going to grab this out of. So I think we can just save this. Okay, so let's see if we did this right. If we did this right, I'll be able to save this right from the website into the folder. And this is one of the things that I really love about Unity as an engine. So we go into our project folder, and now I can actually open up this assets folder from my window explorer. Right? Watch this. We go to the tile map, and now we're going to save it right in the tile map. So just to all right, see, this is empty. It's empty, right? We're in a completely different window. We're in the Windows File Explorer right now. We click save, and there it is. Yay! On my way to acupuncture. We'll catch you next time. Hey, have a great time with acupuncture. I've heard wonderful things about it. I definitely want to try that at some point in my future. And thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you. You're awesome. So there we go. We've got our tile map now loaded on in. And let's go back to full screen here.
Open up that tile map folder, and off screen, I'm going to drag my tile map sprite sheet into here. And as we've done before,
oh boy. Okay. So this should be fun. Hopefully this actually is organized really well and we won't have to mess around with this too much. But obviously we're going to find out.
Mode to multiple. Open up the sprite editor, go ahead and imply that, and simply slice it up by cell size in a nice 16 by 16 fashion, and we have all these nice clean tiles.
Okay. All right. So this is organized really well. Type automatic, no. Grid by cell size. We're going to do 16 by 16. And then boom. Oh. Slice. Awesome. So now that that's all sliced up, right, this is making perfect cells for us. We love that. And this is set up really good for a tile map too. We've got, outside for our parallax bushes. We've got inside for the parallax bushes. And then obviously you've got the dark center that'll kind of help you flesh out everything in between. And then same thing for our grass, raised areas, sunken areas, our dirt areas. You've got inside, you've got outside, and water inside, outside. So this is cool. This is great. We're not going to have to get too crazy with this. But that does remind me, I don't know if remind is the right word. It does point out some things that we're going to want to take into consideration. Some stream in the near future, we are going to actually build out our own tile map for the world that we're building. Because right now, all the assets that I'm using for the project that we're setting up, these are assets that they provide. So that way we don't have to spend too much time around the art side of it while we're getting the basis of our game up and running. So that's something that we'll be able to put a little bit more time and effort into down the road, because I do really enjoy making pixel art. But that's another skill that I'm still, very, very green in, still learning. I've got a nice Wacom tablet that I've been practicing on, so I'm pretty good with the stylus now at this point. And there's just something about making a picture pixel by pixel and just that old 2D style. It's very nostalgic for me, and I love it. So, okay.
We can modify. And over here on my hierarchy,
sliced.
I'm going to go ahead and create a 2D object, tile map, rectangular grid. Now,
okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to set up a grid. Now, did he actually create an object called grid? I just need to check that real quick.
Over here on my hierarchy, I'm going to go ahead and create a 2D object, tile map, rectangular grid. Now,
okay. So we need 2D object, tile map, rectangular. Wait, that didn't look the same as his. I mean, he is using a different version.
Object, tile map,
I think we'll be
rectangular
fine.
Grid. Now I'm going to go ahead and name the one and only layer we
Okay,
have
so it
here
did just
and
make
name
it as a grid.
base.
That's fine.
That will just act.
And then our tile map will be our base.
As our grass base for now. Now we're going to need a tile map window. I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Window, 2D, Tile Palette, and I like to keep mine over in my...
Oh, hey, look at that. We've actually already got a tile palette window open. We built it in. You know, once upon a time when I was setting up my workflow window, I think I had these grand ideas that I was going to utilize tile palettes and tile maps. And then I just never stopped to learn them. So, yeah, here it is. This is our first time getting to use it.
Same animator section, and I'll make that as big as possible so that everyone can see it for now. And I'd like to be able to create a new tile palette. So what I'm going to do is in my tile map folder, I'm actually going to create another folder and just call it tile.
Okay. So, hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for stopping by.
And you'll see why I do that in just a second.
Oh, what are we doing? We're creating a new folder called Tiles. Why are we creating a new folder called Tiles?
And next we need to create our tile palette. So I'm going to go ahead and click this drop down menu, click Create New Palette. I'm going to keep all of these settings as the default direct.
Okay, so we're going to create a new palette. Let's see. How did I change the Unity theme color? Project settings? Because I know what you're asking, and I can't remember how I did it. No, it wouldn't be project settings. It would have to be... Well, you know what? Let's ask our AI buddy. Let's see what he has to say. Yeah, we can check that out. Project settings, editor. He's taking a while to respond. Let's see. Open Unity. Edit. Preferences. So we go from edit. We go to our preferences. Okay, that's kind of making sense now. Right? So once we're in our preferences, we go to the general. Here we go. Editor theme right there. Dark light. All right. So editor, preferences. Oh, that's shortcuts. Preferences, general, editor theme. We'll just switch that over so you can see it real quick. This should it should compile pretty quick. All right, there we go. So now we're on light theme. However, I find the dark theme to be much easier on my eyes. Oh, can you add a custom color? Ah, okay. That's a really good question. I mean, if you can do it, I don't think you can do it right from... Oh no, did my sound cut out? Hold on. I can hear me. Can you hear me now? Maybe I put my face too far away from the microphone. Well, that's unfortunate. I can still hear me, though. Let's try resetting that. Although it could be on your end. Although, now that I'm saying this, you can't actually hear me. Let me type it to you. There we go. But in the interest of answering your question, since you can't hear me, I will type it out. Change the theme. Oh, no worries. No worries. Yeah, something weird must have happened. Could have been on Twitch's end. Could have been on, anything in between. But yeah, so I don't know. It doesn't seem like it, and at least if you can change it, you probably won't be able to do it from inside. So what we are making, this is going to be. I need to. I'm getting a little bit of feedback because I left the volume on. What we're making is we are making a 2D top-down adventure game that is going to have a lot of inspiration drawn from the old SNES, A Link to the Past. So that's one of the first Zelda games that they released on the Super Nintendo, which is something I grew up playing and I dumped a ton of hours into. And there's a lot of nostalgia factor there. I love the 2D art style, pixel art from the old 16, 24, 64-bit cartridges. And we're going to be expanding a lot more on that too. There's going to be a naval component to this game as well, in which you'll be controlling a little ship navigating around. You'll have your own little crew. You'll be able to have naval combat from ship to ship, as well as being able to explore areas in the 2D top-down. So that's what we're aiming for right now. I don't know if we'll work on something maybe like a lot simpler in the interim as well, just to get some practice with some other things. Because if this game does pan out with how I've kind of got everything going in my head, it's going to take a while. I mean, I'm a very, very novice coder, a very, very novice pixel artist. But, maybe if everything pans out well, I might actually team up with some people somewhere down the road too. As far as the soundtrack goes, though, I'm very fortunate. My brother-in-law, who just married into our family not too long ago, is a very, very talented musician, composer, plays tons of different instruments. He's a music teacher. He's already agreed to help me out with building a soundtrack for any of my future games, and especially this one. He sounded very interested in the whole project, so that should be pretty cool. So even if the gameplay stinks and the art isn't great, it should at least have a really good soundtrack to it. That'll be nice. But I digress. All right, let's see if we can get our tile map situated here now.
Outdoor.
Wait. Okay. So we're going to create a new palette. We're going to call it Outdoor, because it's going to be the outdoors. Apparently pit door is what I wanted to type there. Do I have to do anything?
Click create.
Just create.
And I'm just going to keep this in my tile map folder that is nested inside of my assets folder, and I'll go ahead and select that folder. And
so
we
that
now
should
have
be
this
pretty
nice
easy.
Outdoor prefab that we can use.
So tile map, tiles. Did you put it in your tile folder? Yes.
Folder that is nested inside of my assets folder, and I'll go ahead and select that folder.
Did.
And we now have this nice outdoor prefab that we can use.
Oh,
So
there it is. All right, great. So it looks like when we make the palette, right, and we get our file explorer to pop open, right? And similar to what I was talking about when we were uploading files directly into our assets folder, we just select that folder, and now we've got this tile map here. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but we've got a tile
You
map.
don't need to open it up and divide it. I'm just going to grab the entire image and just drag it on here.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
As soon as I release the left-click mouse button, I'm going to go ahead and select my tiles folder that we've created as an...
Okay, that's kind of cool. I think he did it like this. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So then we just drop that right in? Wow. Oh man, tile maps are so cool. Do I have a Discord server? Yes and no. I have the beginnings of a Discord server set up that I don't have anything really situated on. It's close enough. I really should take some time to finish getting it set up. Mostly, I just want to finish the back-end stuff, so that way when people join the server, they just have to confirm that they're a human and not a robot trying to spam people with DMs and scams and whatnot. So it's just, I want to really make sure that that's situated before I start trying to set up a public place for everybody to kind of hang out. Because there's another Discord server that I've been owner / an admin on. Has nothing to do with game design or anything, or any of this stuff that I'm doing. But we have had a lot of trouble in the past with scams and robots and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure that those systems are set up in place. But you have inspired me, so I really do appreciate that. And you know what? I'm going to have my Discord server up and ready for this weekend. So I'll make sure that there's some links posted to that inside of Twitch. So right in the profile, you'll be able to find that in the very near future. And then I'll probably also add it to the YouTube page as well. So thank you. You know what? I think that was the kick in the butt I needed. I needed somebody, like a real person, to be like, hey, do you have a Discord server? And yeah, so thank you. Oh, geez. Put it in the tiles? What are you doing here?
For organizational purposes, I'm going to go ahead and select that folder and import all of those tiles into my outdoor prefab that we created.
Gotcha.
And just...
Okay, so just to kind of recap what we did, because I want to make sure that I can remember this, we dragged our sprite sheet onto the grid over for this outdoor tile map that we created. We then saved the tile map into our tiles folder. Oh yeah, look at this. So every single 16 by 16 grid is now its own individual tile. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, no, and I mean you're absolutely right with that, and it's one of the things some of my friends have told me. I've got another friend that does some streaming stuff. She's been doing it for a while, and she was also kind of an inspiration for getting this all up. And a lot of the stuff that I've read, people are like, "Hey, you know, you need a community around where people can chat about that stuff. I mean, otherwise, how are people going to find you? How are people going to build up around what you're doing? You know?" And I mean, that would even be great too. Have a place where people can exchange ideas. I mean, there is a section that I've got situated, right, for people to leave feedback. So when I put out a demo or something, you know, hey, did you play my demo? Do you have some ideas on what you'd like to see in the future, or do you want to report a bug, or do you just want to tell me that I'm an idiot for doing something the way that I did it, right? Like, there's no bad ideas, just silly ideas. But yeah, no, I totally hear you, and anybody that's trying to build a community, Discord is the way to go. It's such a great platform. Yeah.
Like that, voila, we should have a nice outdoor tile set that we can use. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this grass game object. Don't need.
Okay. I was like, wait, what? You're going to delete the grass? Don't delete the grass. So we're going to actually delete this from our background. Oh no, everything's gone.
Need that anymore.
And I think we're actually just going to like
my base is
paint
selected,
it.
And to get a nice...
Okay, so we've got base selected.
A solid grass foundation. I'm going to click this box here in the center that we can drag, and I'm going to select all 4 of these grass tiles.
Okay, I need to make this area a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, that's great. That's much better. Okay, so we want to make sure that that is selected and highlighted. That's something that's definitely going to mess me up in the future, I know. Because, like, we click it again. Oh, now it's gone. What are we doing? Oh, then it moves over to the paint part. Yeah, so I think we want to make sure we have that highlighted. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our grass.
In here, I'm going to select all 4 of these grass tiles at the same time to give us that nice grassy pattern. I'm just going to start somewhere in the top left and just hold, click, and drag. We now have the start of our tile set. Now instead of
that's cool. So, oh, wow. Look at that. And it's like a paint... Oh, man. Now, of course, our layers are a little messed up because as soon as we drag that over... It's interesting. It's what it's covering and what it isn't covering. No, but that's just... that's a layer issue that will get fixed.
And pasting this and creating a couple different layers onto our grid, we got to be careful of doing that. It would also include...
Oh, wait. Oops. Why can't I undo? Oh, no. Oh, did it just... Okay. I thought I had messed something up because I didn't have base highlighted, so I thought I don't know what I thought I just did. But that's what this is. Okay. It's all starting to make sense. I'm figuring this out piece by piece. So, inside of our tile map grid, we made base, right? Well, we've got base selected right here. So just for GPs, right? If we were to make another one, so let's check this out. I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. We do another tile map. This one is also going to be rectangular, and we're going to call this test. Okay? So now in theory, there it is. Look at that. Okay. I get it now. Once we've created the grid, we can add tile maps to that, and then we can paint specifically on those tile maps. I can see how this is going to become very important as we move forward, especially when we talk about layering. Layers that you can interact with, layers that you can't interact with. So, like, for example, if this wasn't test, let's say it was terrain, right? But it's specifically like terrain that we can't go around or through. We would be able to paint, say, the edges of our hill right onto that layer. And then because we already have the layer set up so that way you can't clip through it, that's going to end up saving a lot of time in the future. Okay, cool. We've got our base. We've got our grass. We're going to have to change the layer order.
This grass that we've already created. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and click the grid, click Create Empty. I'm going to call this one Foreground.
Okay. Wait, Create Empty. Why did you create an empty? Does it not matter? Does it not have to be?
Instead of copying and pasting this and creating a couple different layers onto our grid, we got to be careful of doing that. It would also include this grass that we've already created. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and click the grid, click Create Empty. I'm going to call this one.
Interesting. So I think if we just create an empty inside the grid, it'll still have those same properties? No? Or maybe from there we can just add tile map to it? I don't know.
And I'm just going to add a tile map.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so... All right. I see what he's doing. And it's the same thing that I just did when I created the that test area, right? So if we just... We could do it that way. We create the empty object, then we add a tile map to it over on our components. But I mean, we can also do this. And then it's already got the tile map renderer. So we don't have to redo that. We don't have to add it.
And a tile map renderer.
So, I mean, right, it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. How do you want to do it? Do you want to create an empty object and then add your tile map renderer? Or do you just want to add a new tile map to your grid? What saves time? It feels like it takes just about the same amount of time, so it's probably going to be more of a preference.
And a little bit of a fun fact, if I would have added the tile map renderer first, it would have automatically added the tile map component, since that could be considered a dependency for the tile map renderer, skipping that extra step and just kind of good to know.
Okay, so something else that he just said. We're going to do it the other way real quick, just so you can see the difference, and obviously repetition is the grandfather of getting better at something. So we just created the tile map through the grid. We've got our tile map renderer. What he did is he created an empty, called it foreground, which we're just going to name test, right? Then in that empty object, he added both of those. But here's what he just said, and here's another time saver. If we just add the renderer, it automatically adds the tile map. So just, again, another little way to save some time when you're working through these things, right? So, yeah, I don't necessarily see a difference in either.
I'm going to do that
just
one
preference.
more time. This one I actually can duplicate since there's nothing on it. And I'm just going
to... Okay. And then now, here's the reason why we didn't duplicate, right? Because we've already got grass drawn on our base. If we duplicated that, we're duplicating the grass. Foreground, however, there's nothing drawn on it. It has a tile map. It has a tile map renderer. So we can just duplicate that.
One cosmetic for things like our trail path. The foreground for now, I'm going to use things like the water and these walls. So I definitely do not want you spending a lot of time on this. But for now, I'm just going to simply click the paintbrush, select this entire cliff, and I'm just going to plop it down somewhere on here.
Okay. And we're doing this in foreground. Okay. So we've got foreground. We're going to select our paintbrush. We're going to select the whole little dirt map. Oh, look at that. The problem is, though, I can't see the other things. And I believe those are just objects. So before we do that, where can I adjust this layer order? We probably could just situate that now. But I don't know how we would want to situate that with all of our other layers. We don't really have an organizational... we don't have an organization set up. Oh, here we go. So this is our background. So if we did this, now it's behind everything. Aha! Aha! Perfect. Okay. We'll leave our background like that for now, -100. If we do, we're probably going to set up a layer order, sorting layers, that is. But for now, we're just going to push this all the way to the back, and that's going to make it easier for us to do this. But we want that on the foreground. Okay, we're on foreground. Look at that. Look at that. And we've got a nice little hill. Fantastic. Feeling like Bob Ross now. Yeah, that nice little happy hill right there. That'll be our little secret.
Now I just noticed it looks like we're missing some of the trees. I'm going to go ahead and make sure our base is set to the same layer that our grass
He's doing in the lesson right now what I just did about the sorting layer.
Our foreground is -1 since we always want our player to be on top of it. So it looks like I don't want that here actually.
Too funny.
I'm just going to quickly delete that
by
selecting the eraser and highlighting over what we just placed. I'm going to go back to the paintbrush, and I'm just going to put this nice little cliff over here on this side. Don't spend too much time setting up your scene at the moment. In the next couple lectures, we're going to be setting up rule and animated tiles, so if you get too far on manually going through each
animated tiles, that's going to be cool.
Nice scene, can't wait for you to do that, but hold off on it for at least a few more lectures until we get our rule tiles up in place, since you're going to have to redo all that anyways if you do it at the moment. Now, very important, we want our player to be able to run into this cliff. So we have to add a couple things. Let's add a rigid body 2D, and I'm just going to make sure that's set to static since we don't ever want it moving. And I'm also going...
Okay, so this is what I was talking about, right? With setting up the multiple tile map layers. So we are actually going to add a rigid body to our foreground objects, and this will be what will prevent the player from walking into them. Perfect. So
Add
I
a
think we're just going to
Tilemap
use...
Collider 2D.
We're going to use a rigid body 2D and a tile map collider 2D. Okay. And I think with the tile map collider, we can actually set it so that way it will automatically kind of draw around the edges of the object. So we won't have to draw out a polygon for every single piece of foreground that we make. I think. Well, we'll find out.
As well as a composite.
Rigid body, we want to change this to static, not dynamic. I think all the rest of this is fine. We don't need a material. We don't need it to be simulated. No layers excluded.
2D. And
Okay, he's also adding a composite collider. I'm not actually sure what a composite collider is.
if you go ahead and kind of zoom in on this, you might be able to really see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and enable gizmos, and you can actually see where the collider line is on the outside.
Yes, okay. So, I don't know... Okay, it is. All right. Our composite collider, it looks like, is what's outlining the shape. So, if we were to zoom in, and this is what he was just talking about, gizmos enabled. Yep. Let's change this. So you can see, right? It's actually drawn around the entire shape. So now that has a collider on it to the shape of the foreground object. Perfect.
Head of the ground just a little bit. But if you have this composite collider as a component on this game object, you can simply tick this used by composite property in our tile map collider, and you can see that shift around a little bit, so it'll now act as if this is just one giant.
Okay. Used by composite. All right, we want to watch that, because apparently it's going to shift. Oh! My eyes didn't actually register that. So these darker lines, it has actually drawn a collider box over each cell. So if we use the used by composite, then it's going to draw it to the object. Okay. Nice. Oh, this is so cool. This is really cool.
Collider. I'm just going to add one little cosmetic feature by selecting this cosmetic drop down.
All right, what are we doing now? We're adding a cosmetic feature.
Down on the tile palette. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my paintbrush is selected, highlight this trail area. Not going to think about it too much. We're going to have to redo it shortly anyways, and I'm just going to plop that down here. Now I do want to make sure my cosmetic layer is set at the same sorting layer as my cliff, so it's always below the player. And yep, looks like everything is working as intended so far. The last thing I want to do is probably readjust our camera confiner. So I'm going to go ahead and click my camera confiner in my hierarchy, click edit.
Okay, I want to see how he did that real quick with the layer. Order in layer. Oh, okay. So we've got our base. Foreground, that can stay with the way it is because we don't want that to actually appear underneath everything. Our cosmetics, though, we can just do a -1. So real quick, okay, so we set that up on a -1, and then it should be able to go behind everything in our scene, and it does. Perfect. Awesome. We'll turn that brush off just for a second.
So it's always below the player. And yep, looks like everything is working as intended so far. The last thing I want to do is probably readjust our camera confiner. So I'm going to go ahead and click my camera confiner in my hierarchy. Click edit collider and just readjust this into the 4 corners nice and briefly. And I think the last thing I'd like to do...
Okay, we've got our 4 corners. Let's drag that so it matches. And that way our camera will stay inside our area. Perfect.
Before we hit play is head on over into our foreground layer. I'm just going to do the same thing for the water. I'm just going to place a nice big...
Just going to make some water? Okay. Well, just, I guess right now we're just making sure that everything kind of works properly. And it's in our foreground. Foreground. Yep, goes over everything. Oop, except for our player. Wait, no, it does go over our player. That's the camera. Okay. Cool.
Water chunk right here in the middle. Make sure it's on the foreground layer so it has those colliders. And I'll go ahead and click play and give it a shot. I'm going to blow this game tab up, and right away we can see the issue that I think some of you might have and some of you might not have. You can see this screen tearing that's actually happening right in between.
So he's getting a screen tear, but some people will have that, some people won't. I don't appear to be getting a screen tear. Yeah, look at that. We can't walk over it. We can't walk over it. That's perfect. Pew, pew. Now that's going to be something that we're going to have situated in our sorting layer. But that's perfect though, right? Because we should be able to get right up against it, but we also want our player to appear on the outside of it. Okay. Well, let's actually make this larger, see if we're getting a screen tear. No, not our scale. How do we... Forget how to do the whole focus on this. Oh my gosh, why can't I remember? Is it simulator? No, that's for an app, if we were doing it on a cell phone. I can't remember how. Do I have to set that? Oh, play unfocused. There we go. Okay, play focused. Oh. No, never mind. It's not play focused. It's play maximized. So I just want to see real quick if we end up getting that screen tear that he's talking about. Oh. I mean, just for a split second, it looked like we... There we go. Okay, we are getting some screen tearing. Okay, I think that's what he was talking about. Okay, cool. So we are getting it. It is an issue that we're going to have to address.
Between each individual pixel of our grid with this grass sprite. It's going to be really subtle on the recording, but if you can see it, you might even have it on your own screen that when I walk around, you might be getting these little tiny screen tears across the screen in between some of our tiles. Now there's a couple different ways we could fix that. It's usually some kind of combination in between your screen resolution size, the aspect resolution size that you're using, and even things like our PPU or pixels per unit on each individual sprite setting in combination with the orthographic size that we have set to our virtual camera. It could be any kind of combination of those. It can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to fix, or we can just go into our tile map folder, right click, create. You can go into 2D.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying there's, I'm going to use a little hyperbole, there's hundreds of reasons for why we could be getting that screen tear in between our grid units for the pixels. He's talking about how it can be, the camera, other things going on. But I guess there is a very simple fix that we're going to be doing. And we're going to back this up just a titch.
Or we can just go into our tile map folder, right click, create. You can go into 2D and create the magical sprite atlas. This can clean up a lot of those screen tearing issues that some of you may or may not have. I'm going to go ahead and quickly create that. It's a super easy thing to set up, and I'm just going to call mine tile map sprite atlas. This can compress all of those sprites together a little bit to make sure that our camera and our computer is refraining from having those screen tears. So I'm going to click my tile map sprite atlas and just set it to some of those same settings that we did in our sprites.
Okay. So just something simple like this is apparently going to fix all of the potential issues that could be causing that screen tear. Interesting.
It does need to be point with no compression.
So, okay, this does make sense now that I'm thinking about it, right? So when we're doing pixel art in our games, there are a lot of things that we have to change with how the images are being rendered versus if we're just, throwing a straight up PNG or JPEG, something that you drew in like Photoshop, right? When pixel art is being rendered, it does have to be rendered in a different way. So, using this atlas and setting it up the same way that we import our pixel art with, that should, I'm guessing, and maybe he's going to explain this, but this is, I'm trying to parse my brain through this with the knowledge that I have already. And I'm guessing that it's going to kind of create like a background, if you will, that will almost make it so each of these units overlap each other just ever so slightly. So, what you can do, there's another way to go around this so you don't have to worry about it, but just in case, right? In your sprites, oh crap. No, I do want to save that. We'll look at it again in a second. But in your sprites, right? Let's open up our sprite editor real quick. If you design your tile map sheet, and I can't remember where I saw this. It might have actually been in the last lecture that I was looking at from a different person. If you actually go 1 pixel unit out for each tile, then it's still going to cut that 16 by 16 if you're using 16 by 16s, but you're going to have that slight overlap. So then when you're painting, you shouldn't need to use a tile atlas for that, but that may take a little bit more time, right? Because when you're doing pixel art and drawing the tile map, it makes more sense to just have everything situated like this. Because then otherwise, you would have to cut them all up inside of your program like Aseprite or Photoshop, and you would have to give it that 1 unit buffer layer around each slice. But if you just draw it like this, cut it onto your tile sheet, and then import it, you can use the tile atlas to just make everything a lot quicker. I think that everything I just parsed out is logical and correct, and let's see what he has to say.
All we need to do in this sprite atlas is in this section called objects for packing. I actually just can take this entire PNG image. I don't need
I need to rewind this just a little bit.
to do in this sprite atlas is in atlas and just set it to some of those same settings that we did in our sprites. So the filter mode does need to be point.
Okay, we did set it to point.
Compression. All we need to do
Compression
in this sprite
none.
atlas is in this section called objects for packing. I actually just can take this entire PNG image. I don't need to open it up and put in each individual one. I can click and drag this whole image over, and right here on objects for packing, not down here, but just right here.
What?
Go ahead and plop that in here. You can see that it's set. All I need to do now is click pack preview. That'll compress all of this in a nice clean pack preview up and put in each individual one. I can click and drag this whole image over, and right here on objects for packing, not down here, but just right here.
Oh, okay, that's what I was messing up on.
Plop that in here. You can see that it's set. All I need to do now is click pack preview. That'll compress all of this in a nice clean fashion. So hopefully if we did.
Okay. I can't zoom in or anything on it. But in theory, that should fix the screen tearing. So let's see. So far, so good. We're not getting any lines across the screen. Okay. Look at that. No screen tearing. Oh. You know, I'm going to say that that's probably a much more efficient way of solving for screen tearing than creating that 1 pixel overlap in your slices. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's probably going to be the better way to do it. Well, maybe not better. It's going to be the more time-efficient way. And this being from someone who has attempted to draw a tile map myself. Not like this. I haven't fully gotten a grasp on setting this kind of stuff up, but you know, in one of our future episodes, when we start covering pixel art and going into some of that, I'll show you guys one of the first tile maps that I ever started working on. It was for a 2D top-down shooter that I was working on as part of one of my learning projects, I should say. And unfortunately, something happened with the root or the project file, and it ended up being corrupted. So that's actually why it's not up on my itch.io. I mean, I can't imagine it would be anything super exciting or fun, but, just kind of showcasing what I've learned for myself. But yeah, we'll check that out. Maybe even we'll do a mini game built around that, just so that way none of it goes to use. Because it definitely does not fit the motif for this game that we're working on right now. But I would hate for all that work that I put into something like that to just kind of sit there and collect dust.
Did that correctly. I'm going to blow up my game window again. Give it a walk around a little bit, and yes, awesome. Just like that,
All right.
we have got our
think we're good.
Issues fixed. So not only is our screen tearing issue resolved, but you can obviously see that when we run into this cliff, because of those composite colliders that we set up, we are running into the cliff properly.
Wait a minute. I'm not running into the cliff properly. Let's try something real quick. Because I believe we've got our sorting layer on this set to 0. Let's try this. Oh, that was it. Super simple fix. Okay. Wow, yeah, look at that. It's right. It's exactly how it needs to be. Now, if we wanted to get super fancy, and I have done this in a different game, we could actually adjust the top collider and then mess around with the sorting layer and make it so we can actually go behind this top object, kind of similar to how we go around the tree. But I don't know if we'll need to do that, if we'll want to do that. Maybe. We'll kind of have to see as we start level designing if it will make more sense to do it that way or to just leave it this way. As of right now, this is all still just kind of prototyping all the stuff that we're going to be working with. So, kind of what I was explaining earlier, once we have our prototype in place, that's when we can actually go in. We can pixel art our own tile map. We can pixel art our own player character, our own weapon, animations, all that stuff. We can do all that on the back end, and then we can slowly start to implement that and just change out the image files that are being used and utilized. So that way, we can then really start to level build with our own assets and make something that's a little bit more unique and really speaks to what it is we're trying to do here.
We can't walk over water, but we can walk over our cosmetic layer since that layer doesn't have any sort of colliders on it. I'd love to tell you that this lecture's challenge is to go ahead and take 1 or 2 hours to set up your perfect dream scene, but hold off for now. I'm excited to show you some rule and animated tiles to make your life a whole lot easier. Hold off on it for just a lecture or two, and when you're ready to move forward, I'll see you on the next lecture.
So the next 2 lectures that we're going to be going through is something called rule tiles and animated tiles. I've got to believe that the animated tiles is what's going to give our water, that effect that kind of makes it look like it's got some life to it. I don't know what rule tiles are, though. That's going to be another brand new concept. But hey, guys, that is actually going to do it for our stream today. I do have a meeting that I've got to get to. I did originally hope that I was going to be streaming till about 1, but unfortunately that's just not going to be the case today. Hey, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, especially to those of you who came in to chat and chatted. I really, honestly appreciate it. It was so much fun to actually interact with people today while I was streaming. So you guys were the first, really. When we look back on this in 5 years, you're going to be the first names that I ever got to interact with. So I do want to make sure I give a very nice shout out for the end of this episode. So looking at you, Imperial 2014, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to interact with you today. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Jay Dizzy, truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for hanging out in my stream today. Thank you so much for chit-chatting with me today. And for those of you guys watching, Jay Dizzy is a friend. Jay Dizzy is also a streamer. She streams some pretty cool games. Definitely give her a check. Highly recommend it. And then, of course, looking at you, Vengeance CNS. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you guys. You are awesome. So, thanks again, guys. I had a blast. Obviously, if you're watching the recording of this later on YouTube, if you had fun, please like, comment, subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.